Men's Survival Guide to Women, Introverts versus Extroverts. Which is better? Well, as you can likely guess, it isn't really comes down to which one's better. In fact, I read a study just the other day that said people in the middle, kind of not too introverted, not too extroverted, tend to be the most successful, depending on how you define success. That is, of course, debatable. But what that does tell us is a universal truth, which is extremes are generally bad. If you're someone who's going around with a sign that says, God hates fags, or you're blowing up buildings, a suicide bomber, that can be just as bad as going into churches and disrupting the sessions there because you don't believe in God at all. Neither one of those is the proportionately correct response, at least in my opinion. Feel free to disagree. I'm okay with that. Other thing you should never do, never bring up politics or religion. I just brought up both. Important lesson. Always divisive. Really, when you first meet someone, a girl you like, for example, that's not a great thing to start with. Talk about is what an introvert really is. And an introvert is not an excuse to avoid socializing, which is what people seem to picture it as. Even the most introverted person will need and crave, society, social contact, because we are all ingrained with that need to be around with other people, although you do find some extreme cases where that need is supplanted by the internet. But for the most part, we need something else. We need actual people with us. We need to see them, touch them, and be with them in a physical space. So an introvert then is just someone who loses energy from social interaction. That's it. An extrovert is someone who gains energy from social interaction. So for an introvert, it can feel very difficult to go out and socialize for a whole night and then see people the next day because they need some time to recoup their energy, be alone, and get back to zero. An extrovert, on the other hand, will want to keep going out and keep chatting to people because they're always getting energy. Now, I consider myself mostly an introvert, and I've still had a lot of success, myself and with other introverts teaching this stuff. So it really isn't a barrier to being successful, meeting people, business, relationships, whatever, unless you let it be, unless you let the label suddenly mean more than it means. It's like, oh, I'm an introvert, I can't really go and deal with this, it's too much. And then you start assigning all these connotations because there are a lot of really successful introverts. There are a lot of people who go out and make the effort to socialize and be really good with people despite the fact that they find it more draining. And I honestly believe there are parts of your life where you will be more extroverted and parts where you'll be more introverted. And one of the ways to feel more comfortable being an introvert is to take some of that burden off your shoulders and learn how to properly communicate with other human beings and socialize. So with that said, if you are very much introverted, I would recommend you focus on being or having things just kind of already in your head to say, because one of the worst things of being an introvert is having to figure out, how to respond to conversational things, like, oh, what do I say to this? If you're really kind of in your head, then you're going to struggle a lot when it comes to forging connections, because people can kind of tell, even on an unconscious level, when you're thinking too much about the conversation rather than just being in the conversation. In the conversation, when you're free and uninhibited, there's a lot of stuff that kind of comes out, and there's no need for acceptance from the other person. It just comes out and people get a real sense of who you are. And they're generally very happy about that. But when you're kind of held back, you feel some restraint in some way, you kind of come across a lot more muted. That's a lot harder for people to form a real concrete opinion one way or the other and really want to keep interacting with you. So if you're an introvert, the key thing is just push your boundaries. Keep going out there and do not make it an excuse to avoid meeting women, because it really isn't. I'm sure there's a lot of girls out there who are introverted as well. So the next woman you date could be an introvert too, and maybe she's relying on you to break the ice. In fact, I will tell you that most women are still waiting for the guy to make the move, whether that's introducing himself or going up and talking to her and her friends, or going for the kiss, that awkward makeout that you see at the end of bad rom-coms, or the middle. So with that in mind, you're always going to be your job to, to make that first move. I don't see society changing in the next couple hundred years, with the way where our brains have evolved to change that. So yeah, if you want the life that you feel you deserve when it comes to dating relationships, let's not let being an introvert stand in the way of that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Men's Love Guide to Women. I've been your host, David Crowther, and if you enjoyed this, feel free to like us on Facebook. The group is Men's Love Guide to Women. The website is down right now for some changes again, but we will be bringing that up in the next week. And we'll have all the episodes there and some other cool stuff, so check that out in a week.